Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1015, January the 15th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday. And of course, you know that's the day that I take out the trash and have me some chicken. Every Wednesday I take out the trash and have a little chicken. Now, with that in mind, let's move on to the hot topics of the day. Well, of course, yesterday was the big day, the big tease by Veritas. Actually, the day before, they did the tease, and of course, yesterday we got the first installment of the latest from Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. And boy, oh boy, is it absolutely a bombshell. A bombshell. I don't even hardly know where to begin with this. I assume that many of you have already seen this video. For those of you who have not, I'm going to try to explain to you what's on this video. I'll have to seriously modify the language that's in the video because the individual, the subject here that's being interviewed by Project Veritas drops more, I guess, F-bombs and MF-bombs and things and such than you can imagine. About every other word is some sort of an F-bomb, so I've cleaned it up in such a way that I can read some of it to you and explain it to you what this guy's saying. But anyhow, this latest Project Veritas piece is they interview this Bernie Sanders field organizer. So he's a paid campaign worker. He is not a volunteer. He's not an unpaid volunteer. He's not just some wacky, crazy Bernie Sanders supporter who hitched himself into the Bernie Sanders campaign, which is why this is so damning. This is an actual paid employee of the Sanders campaign, and he's not just a paid employee, he's in a leadership position. He's a field organizer, and this guy's name is Kyle Jurek, Jurek. Again, for those of you who have not seen the video, I'm going to clean up the language here, but the guy is really foul, and he's crazy on top of that. So just let me go through some of the things that this guy said in this undercover video with Project Veritas. And remember, he is a field organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign, an actual paid worker for the Bernie Sanders campaign. So he says the following things. He says that Trump supporters should be sent to re-education camps, and describes Trump supporters as fascists. He said that cities will burn if Trump is reelected. Jurek also, we learn here, has a long arrest record. We can assume at that point that they do not do background checks at the Bernie Sanders campaign because the guy has multiple convictions for drug and alcohol-related offenses. Now, it's not just Trump supporters or Trump himself that, or capitalism that this guy is, calling out. He also despises, I think, actually worse than Trump supporters, the left. So here's just some of the things he's talking about for people on the left. He says that he wants to march into MSNBC and drag the MFers out by their hair and light them on fire in the streets. He wants to march into MSNBC and drag the MFers out by their hair and light them on fire in the streets. I would just prefer if people just stop watching them. That would be good enough for me. No, this guy wants to drag out the people over there on MSNBC, the pundits and the commentators, drag them out into the street by their hair and light them on fire. He says that liberal Democrats should be placed in gulags or put to death. Now, this guy's pretty serious. I mean, if this was all happening over a few beers and he was laughing about it all, it'd be one thing. But watch the video. This dude's a true believer. He says that free speech has repercussions and there are consequences for your effing actions. He says that you should expect a violent reaction and you deserve a violent reaction for practicing free speech. He said that if Bernie doesn't win, Milwaukee is going to burn. He said if the police push back, other cities will burn. He says that 2020 will make 1968 look like a Girl Scout convention, where he's describing cops beating on protesters. I think he's got his history a little wrong, but that's okay. For the purpose of this conversation, we know what he's talking about. He says that in 68 the cops beat the protesters. He said in 2020 the cops are the ones that will get a beating in Milwaukee. I'm sure they'll be prepared for whatever's coming their way, my guess. He said that if Bernie loses, we have nothing left to lose. That's probably the most dangerous thing he says. That shows you these people are true dead enders. True dead enders. They think it's Bernie or bust for real. They lose Bernie, they have nothing left to lose. My friends, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who has nothing left to lose. He also is talking about the Clinton body count. Says he doesn't have to worry about killing the Clintons because the Clintons will kill themselves. He also then starts ratting on Bernie a little bit by saying, hey, Bernie, he's a bad judge of character because of the guy who's put as head of his campaign. He also doesn't like the fact that Bernie likes Elizabeth Warren personally. He says, hey, as far as we're concerned, we're not friends with Warren's people. And he goes on to describe some interactions he's had with Elizabeth Warren's people on during the campaign. So this is just some of what this guy says. You really have to check out the video for yourself. But this is going to be extremely damaging for Commie Bernie. And the reason is because if you watch very much of Project Veritas, you know that they don't just go out usually and get an interview with one person and then roll their entire story out. They usually get multiple people. And that means that in this particular case, Bernie is not going to be able to say, well, that's just one crazy guy, or that's just some crazy guy that attached himself to my movement. No, this is an actual paid employee of the Bernie Sanders campaign and in a leadership position. He will not just be the only one. In fact, I think we're going to find that he probably represents the views of a lot of people who follow Bernie. Now, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders is this kind of a crazy-ass commie. I don't think Bernie would, line people up against the wall and shoot them, any of that sort of thing. He is a commie, I think in the true sense of the word, and he is authoritarian as most commies are, but I don't think Bernie has it in him to engage in this type of mass violence. But what's dangerous about people like Bernie is that people who do think that way will associate with Bernie Sanders, and if they ever get into some position of power, they will use that position of power to do some very nasty things, as this guy is describing. That's part of the danger of a Bernie Sanders, would be part of the danger of a Bernie Sanders presidency, is all the nuts and fruit bags that come along in the mix with Bernie. So this is going to be devastating to his campaign. In fact, it may be the knockout blow. I mean, Joe Biden, his campaign could not have come up with a better strategy to knock out Bernie. The DNC could not have come out with a better strategy to knock out Bernie. So they should be thanking Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. But they probably want to hold off on that, because I'm thinking that before 2020, before the election gets here, he will probably have laid a hand or a few gloves rather, on each of the front runners in the Democratic Party. I think this is just Bernie's turn. I think I think Biden will get his turn, and I think Warren will get her turn, and anyone else that may move to the top of the field will probably get in the crosshairs of Project Veritas. So they probably don't want to pat him on the back too quick. But again, this is going to be devastating, because Bernie cannot just say this is just some, nut that attached himself to the campaign. He is an official employee. And what's going to be pretty well known by people within the higher ranks of the Democratic Party, the DNC, the DCCC, and all these groups, they will understand very clearly that now that these words are known by this campaign staffer and by others we're likely to hear from, that every bit of that is going to be captured by the Republicans. And you can bet that if Bernie becomes the Democratic nominee when he's running against Trump, this stuff is going to be played over and over and over. And that's why it's probably the death knell for Bernie, because he is going to have people who may have supported him because they think he might have the best chance of beating Trump, or because he's got the activist base behind him, or whatever. Any of those people who before, delegates, superdelegates, whatever, who might have supported Bernie, are now going to be, it's going to be explained to them by higher ups and the actual people who control the Democratic Party that this makes Bernie completely unelectable in a general election, because this type of stuff will be used by Trump and the Republicans against Bernie in the 2020 general election. And this would just destroy him. Actually, I think this will probably destroy him. I don't know if it'll happen overnight, but I think Project Veritas probably has more videos to come. And this, unlike most things that Project Veritas covers, that's not going to be covered by CNN and MSNBC and others, this will likely be covered by CNN and MSNBC because they don't like Bernie very much. They're all in for Biden or Warren. So, yes, this is a devastating blow to Bernie Sanders. I don't think this is recoverable. I think this is probably a fatal shot. Now, I don't think he'll drop out, but I just think that it adds such a heavy piece of baggage onto the Bernie train that I think that it probably causes it to go into a... Now, I think Bernie's supporters will stick with him, but Bernie doesn't have enough hardcore supporters. He still would have to bring over some of Warren's people. He would have to cut into some other groups of Democrats. He needs other people than just the hardcore Bernie bros to be able to win a nomination. And now those people probably would stay away. They're not going to want to get around this kind of stuff. So this is probably, I think, a game changer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. I think this probably is the end for Bernie as far as him having any chance of winning the nomination. He could still do well in New Hampshire and Iowa or whatever, but I think that this kind of baggage is going to stay with him for some time. I think it's going to have some immediate damage. It'll have long-term damage, and will ultimately destroy him for having any hope in a general election. Will probably keep any of the major movers in the Democratic Party who might have been willing to get behind him now will run as far as they can in the opposite direction. This makes Bernie completely unelectable in a general election. Project Veritas has delivered a fatal blow to Commie Bernie. Now, as you know, I keep telling you that the Democratic Convention is going to be a freak show of epic proportions, biblical proportions. And the reason I say that is that this is not just that you have a little quarrel between the business Democrats and the Bernie bros. There are about 4 or 5 different factions within the Democratic Party. And because they just about everything that they do is based on identity politics, which essentially divides people. And so when you have such a divisive element within a group, a large group like the Democratic Party, and all these various elements, when they all get thrown together, they attack each other. And we haven't even figured in how Antifa plays into this, but Antifa, you would think that they would be Bernie bros, but they're not. They hate the Bernie bros. They think the Bernie bros are suckers because they like democratic socialism. Antifa are hardcore communist. They see the democratic socialist as their enemy, maybe a bigger enemy. And the democratic socialists see the sort of moderate Democrats or, whatever, neoliberal Democrats, business Democrats, whatever you want to call them, they see them as their biggest enemy. So, as bad as they hate Trump and all of us, They actually hate each other worse. And it's that type of hate that is going to turn the Democratic convention into a total circus. It is going to be epic. Now, I imagine they're going to be planning for all sorts of violence and things and such, but I still think that it is going to be an absolute... These are irreconcilable differences. You know, it's not like in the Republican Party where you have some moderate Republicans, you have some libertarian Republicans like myself. I don't even consider myself a Republican, just pretty much a libertarian, more conservative libertarian, but I don't even like the word Republican. But you have a lot of different, but we can all at least ways, we can all somehow get together enough that we don't want to kill each other or anything like that. There's not a big violent streak. We don't want to do like physical harm to fellow so-called Republicans in the party. We just would like to change their mind about some things that they believe and foreign policy and things like that. Yeah, this is not true in the Democratic Party. These are take no prisoners, hardcore, to all the ways to the far, far left, like the Antifa. Then you move a little to the right of that, you get the Democratic Socialist. Then you move to that, you get the liberal. Then you move to that, you get the moderate. I don't know if there are any moderate Democrats left. You get business Democrats. Then you get the hierarchy, which is the Wall Street bankers, the big Hollywood media companies, the big insurance companies, the lawyers unions. These people, when they're just, they're not into all the social justice and stuff like that. They're money people. So this whole thing is like a dynamite soup. You're going to throw all these things together, and they're all going to come together at the convention up in Milwaukee. And when that happens, it is going to be a mixture of things that shouldn't be mixed together, like ammonia and bleach. There's certain things you don't mix, and this particular group, these various groups, of which I'd say there's 4 to 5 different groups, you cannot put these people all in the same room together. They'll practically kill each other. So when I tell you that we're going to have a blast watching the Democratic convention this summer, when I tell you it's going to be a blast, I mean it's going to be a blast. So there you go. We'll wait and see. There will be more to come from Project Veritas. I assume that we're going to see 3 or 4 other people that they're going to have. And I think what we're going to find out is that it's not just this one really extreme, crazy, nut communist, Bernie bro. I think we're going to find out that a lot of people who think like him are in the Bernie movement. And again, this is a fatal blow to Bernie Sanders. I think this pretty much does him in, to be honest with you. Pretty much does him in. A poll came out. I saw this in Gateway Pundit. It was a poll came out and asking people how much they trust various groups of people. And believe it or not, at the very bottom of the pack, coming in below Congress, coming in below Wall Street. I mean, Wall Street gets 5%, right? That's pretty low. Guess who gets even lower than Wall Street? And who people trust? The very bottom. Hollywood. Hollywood. Yes, that's right. 4%, only 4% of people trust Hollywood. Oh boy, that's not good. Man, oh man, that's an awful low number. And that's why it's so funny that you see these Hollywood people come out and constantly make comments. They think that people actually listen to them or trust them or think that they're worth listening to, when in fact the reality is, people across the country look at people out in Hollywood like, well, they're actors. they're fake people, right? So nobody trusts these people. Most people don't even like these people. You wouldn't invite these people into your home under any circumstances. If you saw them, walk into a restaurant, you'd probably get up and walk out. So, yes, only 4% of people polled trust Hollywood, the lowest of all the various groups. More people trust the government. More people trust the CIA than trust Hollywood. Of course, the CIA runs Hollywood, so China and the CIA run Hollywood, actually. But, yeah, there you go. How about that? Yes, and of course, Madam Botox is going to deliver those articles of impeachment on Wednesday. And so there's a little bit more to add to that here in a few minutes. I'll get to that. We also find out that, of course, yesterday I mentioned this story that I told you was going to be the new narrative for 2020, and that is that the Russians, that's right, the 12 Russian trolls from the Russian troll farm, who they claim hacked the DNC, and of course most of us know they didn't. But they say that these same Russians hacked Burisma to get information that they could release to hurt Burisma Joe. Good old quid pro quo Joe. Yeah, the Russians. Right on. So anyway, we find out now that the people behind this the Russians hacked Burisma. The people behind this is a firm that is co-founded by a founding member of CrowdStrike, specifically CrowdStrike Securities. These, of course, are the same people who gave us the fake story about the Russians hacking the DNC. Coming right out of CrowdStrike, one of the co-founding members of CrowdStrike is one of the owners of this firm that is behind the story that the Russians hacked Burisma. So there you go. All that credibility is gone. Just like I told you. Hey, look at this. It looks like good old Shep Smith. That's right, Shep Smith. Shepard Smith is in talks with MSNBC. That's a perfect fit for Shepard Smith. That's exactly where he belongs. Right there on MSNBC. The funny thing is, whose slot is he going to take? Because he'll be looking for a prime time slot, and he'll be looking for buku, mucho dinero. Somebody over there at CNN, or I mean MSNBC, one of their evening MSNBC people is about to get fired. That's what that means. Well, we have John F. and Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, praising Iran for being disciplined and restrained. Now, you can say a lot of things about the Iranians. You can accuse them of being a lot of things, but I wouldn't put disciplined and restrained in that list. This just shows you that this guy is really nuts. John F. and Kerry is completely nuts. It is so bad, Trump derangement syndrome is so bad that you now have a former presidential candidate, now praising the Iranians after attacking our embassy and doing all the other things that they do on a regular basis. They're bad guys, plain and simple. Does that mean that our history with Iran is all Iran's fault and that we've never been on the wrong side of some things with Iran? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I understand the history of the U.S. and Iran very well. And there's been a lot of policy blunders, just a lot of bad things that we were involved in with the Iranians over the years. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend just because we've had a deep state that's done things they shouldn't have done in regards to Iran. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Iran is some sort of a victim or the good guys. No, they are very, very, very bad actors. And after seeing that, whatever happened, a mistake or an accident or just, incompetence, whatever it was, with the missile that shot down that civilian airliner, once you see that, if you after seeing that think that you should ever allow these people to get a nuke, then there's something bad wrong with you. The difference about the Iranians, it's different from like Kim Jong-un or even from the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union would threaten that they're going to, destroy America or that the North Koreans would threaten to destroy America. We never believed that they actually believed that. It's propaganda for the masses. But these people in Iran, let me tell you, when they say they want to destroy America and Israel or whatever, our allies in the Middle East, they mean it. These people actually will do it. These people worship the idea of martyrdom. They would love heaven. They would not mind getting nuked off the face of the earth as long as they accomplish their mission in doing so. They place a high value on being a martyr. Getting yourself killed for killing an infidel is the highest honor. I don't want that guy having a bomb. Sorry. Okay. Well, it looks like we have another leaker who, of course, I reported on this a couple of months ago, actually, that this person was actually discovered several months ago, actually, quite a few months ago, that just now has gone to trial. Or actually, she pled guilty. But another leaker has now been brought to justice. So, here we have a former Treasury official. She has now pled guilty to a single count of conspiracy after leaking classified documents to the media. That would be the liberal media, and that would be in an effort to hurt Trump. So, Natalie Edwards is her name. She leaked documents related to Paul Manafort to BuzzFeed. This was actually what she was trying to do. She was trying to do a fake whistleblower deal. It was a failed attempt at being a whistleblower. She thought she was going to leak this stuff, the Manafort stuff, to hurt Trump, to BuzzFeed, and that she was going to try to pass herself off as a whistleblower. But investigators caught on to her before she could get this scheme fully hatched, and they, of course, questioned her and then later charged her, and she never had a time for the plan to materialize. It got blown up. So she has pled guilty to leaking these classified documents to BuzzFeed. She faces up to 5 years in jail. Her sentencing will come here along in the next few weeks, and we'll be sure and cover the sentencing. Edwards' boss is also likely going to be charged, and possibly others who were a part of this, what was going to be a whistleblower plot. And what's interesting about this guy is that her boss, Natalie Edwards' boss, is a guy named who they believe is Thomas Ott. Now, she would have had about 4 or 5 different bosses, but when you look at these 4 or 5 different bosses, the one that stands out, who's most likely the person involved with her in this plot, is this guy Thomas Ott. And Thomas Ott, of course, worked with Bruce Orr at the Department of the Obstruction of Justice. Also, he worked with Andrew Wiseass. And as this investigation continues of the people around her, it appears that there's a possibility they're looking at that Weissman may have actually been involved in this, possibly even being the one who created the opportunity for the source to get this material to Natalie Edwards. So we'll continue to follow that story as it moves along. John Solomon is suing the St. Louis attorney Kim Gardner. Also, he names in the lawsuit the George Soros Open Society Foundation and Stacy Newman. So yes, John Solomon's finally decided to take legal action, and he should. And I think he'll be very successful in his lawsuit. I hope he wins a lot of money. I surely do. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, this battle between Bernie and Hiawatha is heating up. And so now the question is being asked today after Tulsi Gabbard commented on it, saying, hey, I've talked to Bernie, and when I talked to Bernie, he was very encouraging. He told me I should keep driving on, and he didn't suggest to me ever that a woman couldn't be elected president. And I don't really believe that. And now we find out that this dinner didn't happen recently. This is actually something that happened a couple of years ago. Why did Hiawatha wait until now to bring this up? And now the question is even being asked, is Hiawatha lying? I mean, she lies about everything else, about why she left her job, whether or not she's an engine, all these other things. She does nothing more than lie constantly. And it is being suggested now that maybe this whole thing about Bernie telling her that a woman couldn't get elected president or what have you may just be a lie. She made it up. We also have Antifa attacking a Bernie bro, a female Bernie bro and her boyfriend who work for the Democratic Socialist of America folks, and it looks like they got attacked and egged by some Antifa crazies. We also have the Elizabeth Warren, who just opened her campaign office up in Portland. Not a good idea. opened her campaign office in Portland 2 days ago. It's already been vandalized, likely by Antifa. Yeah, a lot of Antifa up in Portland, and I can assure you that the Bernie Bros, there's a lot of them up in Portland too, so it's only a matter of time before these two groups come to blows. The left is eating themselves. They will turn on each other and destroy themselves. That's exactly what we're going to be watching. And those of us sort of in the center, on the right, libertarians, conservatives, whatever, we're just going to sit back and watch the show, I guess. We don't have to get involved. We'll just watch the left kill each other. Goodness gracious. What a dangerous group of people. Cannot let these people have power, ever. Well, we have this Iranian cleric calling protesters who were in Iran, these Iranian people who were protesting, calling these people American puppets. That's rich. And he says that the British ambassador, who was recently arrested over in Iran, should be chopped into little pieces. There you go. John F. Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam. These are the people, he says, are exercising restraint. That's what John F. Kerry believes is discipline and restraint. Let's go through that again. British ambassadors should be chopped into little pieces, and American protesters, or the protesters out in the streets of Iran, are American puppets. That's what Kerry calls disciplined and restrained, in addition to all the other things they do. John F. Kerry, what an absolute embarrassment. We got to put his ass on a plane with a one-way ticket to Iran, drop him off in Tehran, and see how he do. Well, it looks like the Democommies want to call this recently indicted dude, Lev Parnes, to testify in the Senate impeachment hearings. And of course, he was indicted with another guy, and apparently Giuliani was using these guys to get information as he was doing his Ukraine investigation. Don't think there was anything illegal that was done there. Of course, these guys have hung out down at Mar-a-Lago, so there is a photo of Parnes with Trump and Trump Jr., but, you know, Trump and Trump Jr. probably posed in pictures with many people. Posing in a picture with someone, as I said yesterday, doesn't make you guilty. This is just another Hail Mary for the Democommies who know that they're going to be made fools of in the Senate impeachment hearings. Ted Cruz wants to hear from the whistleblower. The Republicans really just wanted to get this over with and not have any witnesses, but the Democrats are pushing for witnesses. They want Bolton. Well, Trump's going to say executive privilege and keep Bolton from testifying, but a lot of Republicans want the whistleblower and Hunter Biden to testify. I would too. Let's do it. We have the Dreamers, Bernie Bros, protesting Biden in Iowa after the attack on him by Bernie Sanders. So again, these people are just going after each other, which is to be expected. It's going to get much worse. And finally, Margot Cleveland with another great article you may want to take a look at thefederalist.com, where she points out an article called 5 Key Things We Learned from the IG Report. And here's another one that slipped through the cracks that nobody really talked about that Margot Cleveland has picked up on, which is that Bruce Orr had convened a meeting with several different agencies, including the FBI, the State Department, and some other agencies. This was after Trump was elected, and the effort was to try to flip Deripaska, to get Deripaska to produce some dirt on Trump in exchange for a favor back to Deripaska. And of course, we went through those probably back in 2017, we went through all these emails between Mark Warner, this lawyer for Deripaska, Waldman. Christopher Steele was working for Mr. Waldman on behalf of Deripaska, and they were trying to cook up some sort of a scheme, and now we pretty much know what it was. They were trying to get a Deripaska to give up dirt on Trump in exchange for something Deripaska wanted, which was probably to have these investigations into him lifted and for him to be able to travel to the U.S. Be my guess. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.